Welcome back to another episode of Be Our Guest here on Musical Theater Radio. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Jovanov. On June 24th of this year, the original concept album recording of Kalevala the Musical was released. And I have to say, it is a very cool sounding show. It's based on the epic national poem of Finland. Now, today we are going to learn more about this epic poem, the musical, and the album from today's guest. I'd like to welcome the composer and lyricist, Johanna Telander, to the show. Johanna, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, Jean-Paul. It's a real joy being here.
I'm glad. So before we get into the show and talking about all that stuff, I want to get to know you a little bit better. So we're going to hear a 30-second bio. So in 30 seconds, who is Johanna?
No pressure. 30 seconds. My goodness. Okay. Well, I'm a Finnish-American singer-songwriter, composer, performer. I've lived in the U.S. since 2004. So I'm even though I'm fresh off the boat, I've had some time to be in the U.S. And learn what this country that I'm in is about. But I've acted in shows. I've done my singer-songwriter thing. I've hustled in New York City since 2007. But despite all that, I've always had a true love for writing and composing. And Kalevala the Musical is my debut musical composition.
Awesome. Congratulations on that. I'm looking forward to
you.
learning more about it. And how, were you always into musical theater growing up, or was that something you discovered a little bit later?
To be honest, there wasn't really a lot of chances to be in a musical theater in Helsinki, Finland, which is where I originate from. It was more about drama and plays such as Chekhov. But just as I was leaving to find musical theater elsewhere, they did start getting into it. So it was kind of fun timing in that sense. But I was interested in musical theater and learning more about it, which is actually why I moved to the U.S. is to learn more about musical theater. The only exposure I'd had was Disney movies as a kid. And it's actually funny because when I was a child, I was diagnosed with really, really bad asthma. And in the 80s, which tells you a little bit about my age, they had these really big breathing machines that kept you rooted in spot for long periods of time. So that's when my mom put Disney movies on for me. And so as I was breathing in my medicine, I watched basically every Disney show ever written. So that's how I got into musical theater. But as far as seeing live plays and performances, that didn't happen until much, much later in life.
I'm always curious about other countries, and because I know all about, we're inundated with the US, of course, and the West End and London, and here in Canada I get all that stuff, but I'm always curious about places like Finland or Spain or Mexico or South Korea and things like that, and their musical theater legacy and how it differs from ours. So there isn't a lot in Finland, or is it just early?
There wasn't at the time that I left. So I left in, let me see, 2004 is when I came to study in the US. So at that point, there was a new uptick in musical theater and in an interest in musical theater. They had this show called Hype, which was a Swedish Finnish musical, original musical. I highly recommend that you look it up. It's really incredible. So that kind of ignited a new interest towards it. Until that point, musical theater just wasn't done much. And that summer that I left, they also did Grease at a summer stock theater in Helsinki. So I remember that I actually kind of saw all these musical theater performances popping up as I made the decision to leave. But as I've been here, I've been following what's been happening in my home country, and I do think that now there's a totally different appreciation for musical theater, and there's quite a few productions and performances that are happening all over Finland. And now you can study musical theater in universities, which was not the case at the time, but is now. So
I love adding shows from different countries to my radio station, even if I don't understand a word they're saying. Music transcends obviously language, and we can get an idea. It'd still be nice if I understood it, but it's always exciting.
yeah, yes, it does. And I agree with music transcending, which is why I was not shy of adding actual Finnish passages into the Kalevala musical as well, because I find our language musically beautiful and mystical and a really cool element in and of itself. So for that reason.
Well, there's a great segue. Tell us about the show, the synopsis of the musical.
Sure. So the show is inspired by the national epic poem of Finland. It's the poem is in itself thousands years old. It was told from father to son, mother to daughter, and finally recorded into this book of poems by Elias Lönnrot in 18 I think it was 1837 when the old Kalevala came out, and 1849 when the new Kalevala came out. So even though it was recorded into a book at that time, we really don't know how old these stories are, which makes it just so infinitely cool. And they come from the Karelia region, and they're just they're very unique and yet so recognizable and universal. And I always kind of felt like we were the underdog of mythology. I used to study mythology. I had a vast interest in it. And I always felt like, the Greek gods got their glory moment. And, we hear about the Odyssey, even Mesopotamian myths. But then, the Finnish Kalevala was kind of just mentioned in one sentence somewhere at the back of a book. And it made me feel kind of, I don't know, piqued, or it made me want to do something about it. And so when Finland turned 100 years old in 2017, I lived here. I had two young children, 3 and 1 at the time. And I went into this kind of existential crisis where I wondered what it was to me to be a Finn living abroad, and how I wanted to tell my children about my particular heritage. And so I dug up these Kalevala myths and started writing this song cycle, which little by little turned into this massive musical.
Very cool. Very cool. So, what exactly was that moment? What was the impetus that went, you know what? I'd like to turn this into a musical. Was there a certain light bulb moment?
Well, yes, it was kind of like it found me rather than I found it, because to I actually have to go back a few years, but I studied musical theater at AMDA from 2006 to 2008. So I got a musical theater degree as a performer. And while I was studying, I took this musical theater composition class. And to be honest, that probably should have told me something about myself right there, because it was my favorite class out of all the classes that I took in those 2 years. And it was where I truly became alive. It ended up being my escape route from the stresses of my studies. And I wrote a lot of songs in those 2 years just for myself. And then if we fast forward to that moment in 2017 when I started writing this song cycle, um, I I went back to some of those songs and realized that I had already started writing Kalevala musical at that time. I just wasn't aware of it. So as I added songs to the song cycle, I really went from rune to rune and kind of looked at this one story and then wrote it into a song, and then looked at the next and wrote it into a song. I noticed that some of those old songs that I kind of pocketed and put in my desk were about Kalevala if I just changed one or two sentences around. So they were all there. And that aha moment was what made me realize that maybe it was a musical theater piece and not just a song cycle that I was writing for me and my kids. And that maybe there was value in it beyond our family circle. And so I went and I took two of the songs to the Columbia University um, Kalevala Marathon, which they do every year. Believe it or not, it's
Huh.
a thing where a lot of academics get together and read passages of the Kalevala to each other. And so I went there and I pitched a couple of the songs and told them about my crazy massive idea. And there, a couple of people that were involved in the Finlandia Foundation said they were doing a huge street fair in Greenwich Village in September, and they wanted to commission me to do 12 songs for that street fair as their main headliner. And so I wrote 12 songs. I put it out there, said I was looking for actors and singers to join me on this journey, and that's what really got it started.
Wow, that's very cool. It's
Yeah.
just all those little things. Like I was in the same boat as you. You write these songs and then you put them away, but then you realize when you bring them back out, you went, oh, these do work together. There must have been something in your head at some
I
point,
think
right?
so. Yeah, I think so. And at the time when I was studying at AMDA, I had this dream about this massive oak tree that had these golden leaves that drizzled down one by one and had words inscribed on them. And so it was I was right that was kind of where the whole tree theme for Kalevala came into place because Kalevala and Finnish culture have a lot of nature themed stories in them, and the connection that we have with nature is very deep.
Mhm.
And so the tree musical songs that I'd been writing and Kalevala were just a total match made in heaven. You know, they just worked together. It was it was cool for sure.
And you said this is your first musical that you've written, but we also, when we were talking off air just before, you said you delved into the pop world as well and writing there. Do you find there was a way to bring both together, or did you find it was a little bit different, the writing process for those two?
Yeah, that's a interesting question. So yeah, my background before I moved to the US was that I was a pop artist and recording artist. I had a recording contract with Universal Music when I was a teen. So it was very it was a different kind of upbringing in that sense because pop music is very, like we talked about off air. It's more of a sprint and
Yeah.
musical theater is more of a marathon. But there's definitely things that help each other and support each other also, especially in the writing process. I'm a big fan of earworms, and when I write, usually it starts with a melody that's just stuck in my head somewhere. I might be taking a hike in the woods, and then I start humming something, and then I take that melody and bring it to the keyboard or the piano or the harp. In my case, I also write with a harp, and I'll kind of start developing that very much like I would a pop song. But with musical theater, what I really enjoy is that you have that earworm, you might have that hook, you might have the basic skeleton that a pop song may have, but you have more space and time and um, depth to be able to tell a much larger story, and songs can have story arches of their own, and pop songs, good pop songs, can have that as well in a simplified way. But with musical theater, you can tap into that even more, the storytelling aspect of a song.
So you took those 12 songs, you took them to the festival. What happened with them? How was the reaction, and what happened after that?
It was amazing. It was the people that became involved. First of all, when I put something up, I forget where we put it. I had a couple of friends help me put up the concert because I went to one of my besties, Nicole Kors, who's also a musical theater actress here in the city, and I said, I don't know how I'm going to do this. My kids are 3 and 1. I'm absolutely overwhelmed. So I enlisted the help of her and a couple of other friends, and we put an ad into, I forget if it was Playbill or one of these actor sites, looking for actors, and we got over 100 responses.
Wow.
It was pretty sweet. And so out of those 100, we used as many as we could because it is an epic musical, and we need a lot of people, a lot of bodies on stage. And so we all got together at one of my producer friends, David Fletcher's house, and started putting this together. And I honestly, the reaction we got at the street fair, considering we maybe had like a handful of rehearsals, and on stage we only had, it's outside, we had this stage that had a cajon set and a keyboard and a violinist, and then I don't know, 24 people or something.
Wow.
It was just, now thinking back, it seems so comical, but we all had the same like can-do attitude and this energy, and we all really put our best efforts forth that day, and the feedback was incredible. We had people stopping. There was foot traffic. There was probably 5,000 people on that street that day, and to see out of those 5,000 people, people actually stopping and listening and wanting to know more and having questions and asking where they can see more and whatnot. It was again, I said this word before, but it was truly humbling seeing that reaction and seeing that interest ignite. And it was there that we were asked to do another concert and add more songs on. And I think the next concert we did was at the Estonia House in New York. which is one of my favorite places. They've been such big supporters from the start. Then we did another concert a few months later at this insanely freezing church in January, St. Peter's, where we added again a few more songs onto the set. And my actors were, Broadway actors that believed in the music and wanted to be a part of it and came to participate in this freezing church where we all sang with mittens on. It was it was great.
Wow.
It was, I mean, it was truly, when I say freezing, there was no heat. And again, there was, we had a sold out audience, and then we were approached to do a concert at the Scandinavia House in March. So we had several concerts kind of back to back to back, where I was writing and writing and writing some more and just trying to add to the story, because everyone was like, well, where does the story go? We want to know what happens next. When's the next concert? When can we see the next songs, so that we know where the story is going? So it was quite stressful, but so exciting. And I was just feeding off of the energy that I was getting, and adding to it. So then the March concert at Scandinavia House was also sold out. And then we went to Finland, did a couple of concerts there with a Finnish cast at a musical theater venue called Kapsaki Teatteri, which is in Helsinki. And then after that, we did I really started working on the book, because at that point it had just been songs. And the songs that kept on adding on to one another. But I did realize that we needed to have some storylines in there too. So I worked with a couple of different playwrights or book writers, and had readings where we kind of tested out different stories. But then fast forward several months, all these people that have been involved since the start, my truest supporters, my collaborators, my friends, they had a little um, intervention with me. And they said, I don't understand why you keep on trying to find book writers and playwrights, and nothing against them. They're all really talented, but you've already written the story.
Mm.
You've already communicated the story in your head through your songs. You already know what happens. You know these characters better than anyone else. And you have these intricate things in your head that are such a big part of the story. Why don't you just write it? You should write it, because it just seemed like there was a disconnect between the book and the music. So I then had to listen to my friends and believe them, and I wrote the book myself. And so now the book has also been written by me, which is not what I set out to do, but I'm really grateful and glad that I listened to them, because I think they were right. I think the story was already embedded in the music, and it just made sense for me to bridge it.
Yeah, it creates a cohesive vision when you can do all three. It's not as easy, but
Yes.
it's a cohesive vision. I want to talk about the album in a second, but I do want to go back. So you did all these concerts. What was it like? The audience obviously loved it here. I mean, there in the US, but taking it to Finland, what was that like for yourself? Even just you're back home, right? And
Yes.
getting them to hear it. What was that like?
Oh my gosh, I was terrified. I was terrified and excited, and I felt like such a fish out of water. I really, because I had lived abroad for quite a long time at that point already. But my brother is also an actor in Finland. So and he's one of those people that just knows everybody. So my brother, and then one of the stars of our show, Reeta, is Reeta Westman, is a huge star in Finland, and she's been involved since the beginning. She actually answered that Playbill ad, if you can believe it, and said, "Hey, I'm
Wow.
Reeta from Finland. I saw that you're doing this Kalevala show. I want to be involved." So she's been incredible, and she's really been the bridge between these two worlds as well. So between my brother and between Reeta, my beautiful, gorgeous superstar, it was kind of easy to bridge to Finland through them.
Mhm.
But to answer your question, the personal experience was
Yeah.
really terrifying, because I really did not know how I was going to go over, and what people would think.
Yeah.
And I was really grateful, because they got some amazing stars and actors that have had incredible careers in Finland involved. And even though Kapsaki is a somewhat smaller venue, um, it was such a great place to birth it. in Finland, because it is, as we talked about, musical theater is kind of still a new concept in Finland. It is one of those places that is meant to support exactly this type of genre, kind of like what your show is doing for us. That space is that in Finland. So I felt very much welcomed home in a way.
Just think about it. You could be an inspiration for the new Finland musical theater writers in 10 years. They could go and say, I saw your show and inspired me to write this. So
I
congratulations.
hope so.
That
Thank
would be
you.
so exciting and frightening. I understand that too. That's awesome. So let's talk about the album and how it got together and some of the people that are on it.
Yes, let's talk about that. So now you know what all we did in the years prior, and how we kind of got to this point. We did a staged reading of the book that I wrote in 2000. I think it was 2019. All the years are starting to kind of jumble. So if I'm lying, I'm sorry, guys. But my mind is what it is. So I think it was 2019. We did a stage reading at the Signature Theater off Broadway, and it was an incredible experience. I was working with a couple of new producers at the time, so it was kind of like dating. You're figuring out if you found the person that's going to take it to the next steps. And I had a director involved as well, and we put it up. We wanted to see how it all works together, and then of course the pandemic hit quite soon after. So it was one of those moments where all of us musical theater slash performing artists all had to take that little moment to figure out what's next in our lives and what we should do. And I got incredibly busy distance learning with my children who didn't get to go to school. So I kind of put Kalevala on the side. And while basically the majority of the rest of us were kind of sitting tight and reassessing our life, one of my performers, Quentin Garzon, did the opposite. He got very busy and he did incredible things with his career, and he started producing a lot of virtual videos with massive Broadway stars. And he did a whole series, a whole set of different types of Broadway songs, which you may have also stumbled upon possibly. But he went through the entire Broadway catalog in just a matter of months. And then he was like, you know what, I've done that now. Now I want to do original shows that have not had a chance to be on stage yet. And so he circled back to my show, and he said, hey, can I do a virtual video of one of the songs that I like about like from your show? And I said, yeah, sure, go ahead. I'm not doing anything. That sounds great. So he produced Tuona La Swan of Beauty, which is a trio from the musical, and it got good feedback, and he got excited, and then he came back to me and said, hey, have you considered producing a concept album? And I said, of course I've considered it, but it's insanely expensive, and this show is massive, and I don't even know how to go about it. Yeah. So he said, don't you worry, fret not, I will take this on. And he did. Wow. He did. He started producing the concept album, and he did want to bring some new people on, because he believed that one of the reasons why our show was kind of stopping and spinning its wheels a little bit was because we were using the same people over and over, which is part of what I love to do, because I love my friends, and I love being loyal to people that have been loyal to me, and it was really hard for me to step out of that box, actually, but I did think that Quentin had a point, that we needed to get some fresh takes on this material on this album, just to get it into different listening ears. So he cast it with the people that you hear on the album, and I think they've all done an absolutely incredible job. And of course, I'm so excited to have Ramin Karimloo be my lead, my spirit of man, my vitamin, my young Gandalf, as we joke about. And also we have Julia Murney as Loki, the Witch of the North, and just a wide, incredible cast. And yeah, I couldn't be happier with the way that they took the material and what they did with them.
Is there anything they did that surprised you and went, oh, they get it, or went, I never thought of that, the way they sung it or performed it?
Yes, yes, absolutely. I mean, my vitamin used to be a bass, um, because that's just how I'd written him. And it was awesome. It was great, and it was, but we basically rewrote the entire vitamin and song song set when Ramin expressed an interest to be involved, and we wanted to, because of his wide range and what he's able to do. We wanted to explore what a Vitamin would be like if he had this wild beast rock god inside him. So I actually went through some rewrites just to fit the character around Ramin. So that was fun. Um, and I would have never envisioned Vitamin in that way if it weren't for what Ramin brought to the table with who he is. So that was a vast change. So yeah, you learn through your actors all the time, and you become inspired by them. And there's not one Lohi that I've had that has sung the material the same. And it's actually something that I, as an actor, also want to gift my actors. Is I'm a big fan of allowing for ad libs and places where you can truly make it your own. And actors that have worked with me, they will say that I repeat this over and over, but I always tell them to take the material as guidelines, and feel free to explore it and come to me with suggestions. And not that I would completely change everything. I'm pretty stuck in the way that I want my song to be, but I want it to be one of those skeleton pieces where an actor's personality can really color it the way that they see fit. So,
Yes.
oh, and one thing that I also wanted to mention about the concept album is that I had a chance to work with my childhood friend, virtuoso Marco Hilpo, who did the orchestrations for this. And it would have not sounded anywhere near as fantastical and mythical if it weren't for him. He's truly the next treasure of Broadway when it comes to orchestrating. And um, I'm lucky because I've known him since I was 13. So he literally just read my mind and did what I wanted with it. So I cannot forget to mention him. Very important.
Well, congratulations on the album. And what's next for the show? Do you have more readings coming up? Any stagings? What's the future?
Uh, we have some really fun conversations happening currently. I was kind of just so concentrating on getting the album out, and
Mhm.
Quentin's and my whole goal. And we have a beautiful team. We have Christy Rosma, who was also co-producing. She stepped into co-produce, and she's someone who's co-produced a lot of my concerts with me as well. So she's been around since not quite the beginning, but very close to. And so between Christy and also Petra and Jenny, who are part of my team for the concept album, we really, our goal was just to get it out there and get the music heard, and in the vision that was closest to what was in my head, which is difficult when you do stage readings and book readings, because you don't necessarily get to have a 16-piece orchestra and the full lushness of it. When you just have a piano that's accompanying, you don't necessarily get to communicate that vision the way that you hear it in your head. So that was the goal of the album, and we didn't really think beyond that point. We just wanted it to be out there, and we wanted to see how it would stick, and how people would react, and what would come that way. But um, since it's been out, I've had lots of conversations with lots of interesting, incredible people: producers, directors, artistic directors, theater owners, theater runners, managers. So it's I'm an open book. I think when it comes to the future of the musical, I see it like a cat with nine lives. I see it going all sorts of different directions, and I'm willing to give my baby up to whatever he or she or it. I don't know, what do you call a musical? He, she, it, whatever it wants to be.
Yeah.
So it could be it could go a lot of different directions. But I will say this: I've had conversations with some um, beautiful venues, and I hope that if I get the producers and the directors and the venue to agree, that we can tie it into a beautiful little knot, and then very soon tell you a little bit more about what's coming.
Awesome. As soon as it does, you let us know. We'll promote the heck out of it on our social media and help get the word out there as best as we
I would love that. Thank you.
can. You're welcome. Um, so where can people find the album?
It is available on all major platforms. If you go on our website, which is kalevala you can find a link to every single platform. We have it on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, Deezer. I don't even know all the platforms. I'm
I
so
know
old
there's so
school.
many.
You can find it there. If you want to find like a place where we've listed them all, the website would probably be the place to be. But if you happen to be a Spotify listener, just put it in the search box and it'll pop up.
Sure.
I'm having some issues with Amazon. I've been asking my Amazon Alexa for the album, and she keeps on putting us. She keeps on connecting me to Rumi the musical. So I don't know why,
That's weird.
but hopefully it'll eventually understand when I say Kalevala the Musical and take me to Kalevala the Musical because it is there. So keep on asking Alexa. Hopefully eventually she'll connect you to the right place.
Well,
It is there.
the songs sound great. We've added some of them to our rotation, so if you tune in, you might just hear it. Who knows? It's
Yes.
in there. So it's been great meeting you and learning all about the show. And like I said, I love discovering new musicals and helping promote their creators because every show needs to be discovered. And if I can do my little bit, I'll do what I can.
I'm so grateful for that. And like I said, we need you. We need people like you. There's a lot of brilliant, original thoughts and ideas, and a lot of incredible music out there. And we're a little satiated with the amount of material that floats out there. And
For
and
sure.
we need people like you to want to believe in us and to help us be heard. So my humblest thanks for that.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Now, before we end the interview, I always ask three questions of my guests. There's no right or
Okay.
wrong answer, but we get to know you a little bit better. And the listeners are judgy, just to let you know.
Oh no. Okay.
Just
Okay.
saying, people are judgy, let's be honest, in general. But
Woo! Right.
there's no right or wrong answers, but we'll see. All right. Question number one. What creator or team within musical theater has had a great influence on you? It could be a composer, lyricist, director, producer, actor, stage manager, even could be somebody famous or not famous, maybe like a teacher or anything. Is there somebody in musical theater that's had a good influence on you?
Yes, and I'm gonna cry. This is oh okay. The first person that comes into my mind is Bill Kennedy. He was a producer, sorry, not a producer, a professor at my school, Capital University Conservatory of Music, where I studied before I studied at AMDA. So from 2004 to 2006, I actually got a jazz voice degree, a music degree with a specialization in jazz studies. And I minored in theater. He was the theater professor there. And to this day, he's been my biggest inspiration and the reason why I'm even here, the reason why I decided to go to AMDA after my school, after I completed my degree at Capital. And he had this black box theater, a small black box theater, and he believed in putting up really awkward, small, out of the box shows. He changed my entire perspective of musical theater because before then, like I said, I saw some Disney movies and maybe had heard of Phantom of the Opera, but I just had not had that chance to explore all the depth and the variety of what musical theater is. And he discovered me quite by accident and told me to audition for his show, which I think the first show I did with him was Seagull, not a musical theater piece, I know, but that was how I got involved. And then I did Lucky Stiff. I was Dominique, and I think I just ended up doing shows with him the entire time that I was at Capitol. And he would call me to his office and we would talk about the day, and then he'd just slide me a musical theater book, and say, like, read this. And his humor and his snarky comments really shaped who I was, and I think he was like the mirror that I really needed to discover what I'm about. And unfortunately he passed away last year, but he was the first one to read my book, and he was the one that convinced the book writer that I was working with at the time to let me write my own book. And he was the honest critique and the supporter that I needed to give myself the confidence and the leave to take this further. So I'll never forget that. And he's my inspiration forever.
Nice. I love when people, lots of people say, Hal Prince or, big names. But when people mention, the unsung heroes, of them, I love hearing about them because nobody knows who they are, but they deserve just as much recognition as everybody else. So, you know
Yes.
what? An extra point for that. So 2 points for you and a minus half a point for me because I made you cry. So I'm going to lose this round, obviously. So question number 2, maybe a little bit easier. You're from Finland, obviously. Is there anything from Finland, food, anything like that, that you wish you could get in the States, like all the time? Anything you could bring
Yes.
over?
There's the Karjalan piirakka, which actually comes from the Karelian region that a lot of the Kalevala stories come from, and it's really weird and bizarre, and probably does not sound very delectable to a lot of foreigners. But it's this very thin crust pie with rice porridge inside, and we eat it in Finland as if it were bread. You'd go to the grocery store and you just pick up Karjalan piirakka and you eat it, on the go, and it's just something you can't get anywhere else except in Finland. And it's just, yeah, it's very bizarre, very odd. My father-in-law at the time when he came to Finland for my husband's and my wedding, which we got married in Finland and then got married here as well. We had double wedding. But when he came to Finland for the first time, I told him about the Karjalan piirakka, and I forgot to tell him that it's not sweet, that it's not, pastry. And he took a huge bite out of this thing and was like, "Oh, what is this?" Not what he was expecting at all. So now when I tell people about this favorite of mine, I always have to follow up with, it's a savory treat.
Okay.
It's not sweet.
Nice. Now, this is again off topic, and I just come to mind. You go into New York City, it's very diverse, and you've got shops from all over the world and restaurants and things like. Are there any Finnish shops in New York City that you know of?
Um, not not very many.
Okay.
I hate to say none because someone's gonna come on
Yeah.
the show and be like, "What are you talking about? There's this place," and I'll feel like an idiot. But no, there. I mean, at the Scandinavia House, they have a small shop where you can buy some
Okay.
Finnish goods, and there's also a Swedish candy shop,
Mm.
which sells some Finnish candy, which is really cool because Finnish candy is the best. So,
You've just laid
so
down
I
a
do go there.
gauntlet. You know that for the rest of the
I
world.
do know
Like,
that. Yes. And I dare them to challenge me on this because Fazer chocolate is the best chocolate. And I know Belgian chocolate is amazing too. And there's a lot of good chocolate in the world. I wouldn't know because I love chocolate. But I have to say, we deserve a stake in this claim. So
yeah.
yes.
Nice.
So other than that, I don't think that there's an actual specific
Okay.
store selling Finnish goods. If
Okay.
I'm wrong, come and challenge me on the show.
Another point. One more point for that answer. Couldn't get that one wrong, but that's awesome. That's good. Now I know.
Okay.
Final question. Food in the theater or cell phones in the theater? Which is worse?
Oh gosh, cell phones.
Okay.
Cell phones. There's not a show that I've been to that doesn't have a cell phone go off. I just I don't get it. And honestly, it's happened to me. I've had my phone on silent or whatnot, and yet it somehow goes off. I think it's just a curse on the
Yeah.
theater industry. It's just a curse.
Another correct answer. I would have accepted both are terrible, but
Oh,
another correct
okay.
answer. So congratulations, 4 points for you, half a minus point for me. I don't know where you can
It was
spend
a
these
good
points.
cry. It was a good cry. I needed it.
Well, I'm glad I could help. Johanna, thank you so much for coming on and telling us about your show and about yourself. And like I said, anything in the future we can do to help, just let us know. And I hope everybody tunes in to Spotify to listen to your album.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed learning about you as well and just getting to know you and talk to you. And anyone, if you have any questions about the show, reach out to Kalevala Musical's website because it's either me or my producers who I mentioned that are answering and looking for your feedback. And we want to hear your thoughts. We put this massive thing together and we're just eager to know how it landed. So reach out, questions, thoughts, we want to hear.
Awesome. All right. So we were just speaking with Johanna Telander, the creator of the musical Kalevala. My name is Jean-Paul Jovanov. Tune in next week as we'll be speaking with another guest or guests about their life, love, and passion that is musical theater. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.